Will any freshman play relevant snaps for the Aggies this season?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. So, I want to run through the conversation of can any freshman play relevant snaps for the Aggies. And we're going to start with the only player that I think has a chance to actually start, and that is Terry Bussey. We all know that how talented he is. We all know who he is as a player. And we all think he's going to be an absolute monster. I've discussed that on the show many times. Brian Smith, our Locked On recruiting expert, has explained how good Terry Bussey is multiple times. He is an elite prospect and an elite player. And what position he's going to play. I still lean corner as his permanent position, but I do think when he gets on campus, the staff, which he's here when we get practicing rock and rolling for good. I think the staff is going to want to see what he can do first before they fully name him to a certain position, or is he a guy who is everything? You're going to be a returner, an offensive guy and a defensive guy. Could happen. He is the only freshman that I think has the legitimate chance to start. Now, start is the key word because, there's a lot of players who I think have a chance to play some relevant snaps. But when it comes to actually start, I think the only player with a chance is Terry Bussey. And listen, if you want to add special teams in the mix here, I feel pretty confident he's going to return kicks this year. Playing corner, if I had to list a percentage chance, I'd put it probably 50-50 that he starts at corner this year for the Aggies. And then I think he will play some snaps as the gadget guy in the receiver room, but I don't think it's going to be obviously as a starting role or as the Travis Hunter role where he's playing every snap pretty much on both sides of the ball. I think it's going to be gadget plays on offense, corner as his main position, and then he's going to return kicks. So as much as I think we would all love to see Terry Bussey out on the field as a starter this year. Coach Elko has said this a ton, and he's right. We need to manage expectations for the young star. I mean, he's going to be a great player. We know that. Will it take him a little bit of time? That is going to be what is interesting. Does it take him some time? I think we'll figure that out pretty early on. I mean, I think when you start hearing reports of what he's doing, how he's playing, how he's practicing, I think that's when it'll be pretty obvious, how good he can be, how good he's going to be, stuff like that. So I have the full confidence in the world that Terry Bussey is going to be a star. As y'all know, I think he's the guy who can be a first-round pick in the NFL draft in the future. He's a really good player. And I know Coach Elko was saying, hey, manage expectations. Don't put out unreasonable expectations for a freshman. And this is true. I think he's going to be really good. I think he'll be on the field this year. So Bussey's the one guy who I think has the chance to actually start, but I still don't think it's more than 50%. I mean, if you told me 60%, I'd say, okay, maybe, but I wouldn't go any higher than that. Another guy who I think is going to play some snaps is the receiver, Isaiah Williams. Isaiah Williams is one of the guys that Coach Elko went and got late in the recruiting class. And I like everything about him. I think he's a receiver that was ranked. He was ranked right below that 300 mark or above the 300 mark, and I think that he's better than that. Well, below the 300 mark. You know what I mean? It's kind of, you can go either way. He was ranked like 280, 290, whatever in that range. So, and I think he's a guy, I think he's going to be in the 2 or the 3 deep. I think he's a really solid receiver. And you have to remember, receiver is the position that we have talked about time and time again, where I have some depth concerns, partially due to the Jabri Barber injury. But, I feel really good about this room top to bottom when it comes to talent, but a lot of it is inexperienced talent with some freshmen. So can Isaiah Williams take that step? Can he? And I think there's a world where he does. I really like him as a prospect. I don't think he'll have a ton. I think if you want a position where it's easier to come in and play right away, receiver is one of those positions. It's really nothing's easy. It's not easy to do anything as a freshman in the SEC and in college football, but receiver is one of the positions where I think it's more doable. So he's a guy who I think does get some relevant snaps this year. Another guy is, the edge rusher, Solomon Williams, another guy that Coach Elko, like Isaiah Williams, added late when he got here, a late addition to this 24 recruiting class. And Solomon Williams is a guy who I think is not going to have much trouble adapting to college football. I think he's a really smart player. I think he's an explosive, quick, player. And I think that you're not going to see him, kind of like Williams, struggle as much adapting to college football. The struggle is going to be, okay, he's playing in the trenches, and that is where things get tough. So, Solomon Williams, he was ranked 153rd in the composite rankings from 24/7 Sports, 6'3", 250 pounds, and he's quick, explosive, strong, does not look like a true freshman. He is a big son of a gun. And I love the tape. He played at Carrollwood Day in Tampa, which is a really solid school. He's played good football. He's played against good competition. Same place, obviously, Isaiah Williams played, ironically. So both of them, you could say that. But I really like what Williams brings to the table. And listen, when you play defensive line at Texas A&M as a freshman, as we saw last year with DJ Hicks, doesn't matter how talented you are, how highly ranked you are, it is hard to get on the field as a freshman because Texas A&M recruits so well with this position. They always have talented players at defensive line. It's not easy to get out there as a true freshman. That's just the reality here. It's going to take some time for players, but Solomon Williams is a guy who I think has a chance to get out there this year, not as a starter, but in some capacity to play some relevant snaps. And then the last guy who I think could play some genuine relevant snaps for this team is Tristan Jernigan, the receiver. He's the guy that, Nick Saban and company made a late push at him and, really went after him. And he, of course, stuck with Texas A&M, stuck with Coach Elko. And he's a solid linebacker. He's the guy that I said, hey, if you're going to have a linebacker end up being the Terry and York of this class, despite there being a lot of talented linebackers in this class, I think it's going to be Tristan Jernigan. I love the film. I love him as a player. I think that he is a guy who won't, look at the frame, 6'2", 220 coming into college. That is a legit frame. That is a frame that you do not want to mess with. So, I'm really excited and anxious to see, does he end up living up to this hype that I believe there should be around him? I mean, he's a real star, and I don't think you're going to see him have much issue getting up to speed with college, and he's got the frame for it. So those are the guys that I think have Bussey is the only one with, I think, a legit chance of starting. And then those guys, I think, have a legit chance at some relevant snaps. Another interesting name here, Ashton Funk and Asindre Afua. Ashton Funk, I just love the frame on this young man. 6'7", 305. They have him on the roster. He's just massive. I mean, a huge dude who, if he's got the technique and he's got the form, which when you watch his high school tape, I believe he does, he can get out there. And then Asindre Afua, he was already a grown man when he got to campus. Another guy, more of an interior guy, I could see playing some relevant snaps. I think some of these other linemen are going to have to develop a little bit, get stronger in the weight room before they get some snaps. Those are the two that I think if you're going to have somebody come in and play right away, it'd be one of them. And then another interesting name here is Ernest Campbell. And we'll talk about a little bit why here in segment 2. But this is kind of these are the names that stand up to me with a chance at some snaps. But those four, Isaiah Williams, Solomon Williams, Terry Bussey, and Tristan Jernigan, are the ones who I think have a chance at actual relevant snaps this season as true freshmen. We have another depth chart coming out for Texas A&M. It's an offensive depth chart from our friends over at All Aggies. We're going to run through it. Do we disagree? Do we agree with these things? We'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. So we have a new offensive depth chart, and these are a ton of fun. This is when you start seeing depth charts, post-spring depth charts is when it really starts to feel like, hey, the season's right around the corner. We're getting there, and that stuff is truly incredibly exciting. So, I'm really looking forward because it feels like the season's getting here. So you've got in this depth chart from All Aggies, it's from Aaron Rayleigh over at All Aggies, came out on June 6th, just a couple days ago. And it's the depth chart that we have for quarterback here. It goes Connor Wigman, Jalen Henderson, Marcel Reed. I don't think that is I agree there. I think that, as I've said, I've leaned Reed, then Henderson as the 2 and 3. But any way you break this down, nothing's going to surprise me. This could go either way, genuinely. Like, either when it comes to the backup, I think either of these guys could be the 2 or 3 deep. But honestly, to me, that's more of the quarterback battle this offseason is who's the backup more so than who's the starter. So that's going to be interesting to see who ends up being QB2. It's funny because it's so it literally it's like I lean 51% Reed, 49% Henderson, but it's really right there, 49-51 or 50-50. I mean, it's anybody's battle. Both of these guys are extremely talented. I just am a believer that Reed has more upside, simple as that. So, but I'm anxious to see who ends up winning this battle because both of those players are deserving. They're both talented with upside. I just think Reed has a little bit more. But once again, no surprise here. They do have Connor Wigman listed as the Aggie starting quarterback this season. Then at running back, this is a little interesting. The order goes Le'Veon Moss, Amari Daniels, Reuben Owens. I like Amari Daniels. I am not an Amari Daniels disbeliever. I think he's a really solid player. I just don't think there's any way in the world that Reuben Owens isn't at worst case scenario the RB2. I've said I think there's a chance where he starts. It seems like they fell in love with him in the offseason. He, that 5-star leap from one year to another is a real thing. And I think that you're going to see Reuben Owens take that. He's going to go from a solid player last year to an elite player this year. He's so great in the open field. He can catch the ball. He's shifty. He's quick. He's an all-around, do-it-all running back. He can run through you, over you, past you, around you. Anything you need him to do, he can do. And I love Amari Daniels as a player. Like, once again, Texas A&M has a great and incredible problem. And that incredible problem is that they have an elite running back room. And that is really, really exciting. I mean, you'd rather, as I always say, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And you have a couple solid running backs on this roster that you might have and not need. So, I'll take that any day of the week. So And it's funny, that whole 51-49 thing I just talked about percentage-wise with Henderson and Reed. For me, it's the same way with Moss and Owens in the running back room. I think that one of them is going to be the guy and the other is going to play, going to still get 8, 7, 6, 7, 8 carries a game maybe. Another one gets like 17 to 20. Like you're getting like 20, 22 carries a game in there. So mixed in that range. But I still lean 51% Reuben Owens, 49% Le'Veon Moss. And both of those players I think are absolutely stars. I think they could both be starters at pretty much a ton of SEC schools. So, it's a good issue to have, not knowing who's going to start because you're just so talented in the position top to bottom. Then at receiver X, they have Ja'Day Walker with the backup being Micah Tease and Wesley Watson being the 3 deep. At Z, they have Noah Thomas as the starter with Cyrus Allen as the backup and Isaiah Williams in the 3 deep. And at slot, they've got Moose as the starter and then Ernest Campbell as the backup. And I think that's really interesting. And to me, the most interesting thing here, we all agree with Moose and Noah Thomas and Ja'Day Walker. There's no really debate there. And I don't disagree with Cyrus Allen and Micah Tease in the 2 deep. Ernest Campbell, what I find so interesting about this, he is a small receiver. What was he listed as? Let me pull up what he was listed as coming out of high school. He was listed as 5'8", 150. Small receiver. But he is absolutely lightning quick. I'm talking you blink, you miss him. We're talking the Flash. That is legitimately what he is. He is that fast. So, I think that the size is going to hurt him. We know look at Devon Achane. I mean, he's a small player, but he's fast, and he was really good in college football. I think while Ernest Campbell's a receiver, he can do something similar. He has an elite speed. You can use him in gadget ways, in different plays like that. And I think he's going to do really well in that role. So, to me, he's another guy, and I didn't talk about him a ton in segment 1 with about freshman because I knew we were talking about him here. He's a guy who I think could play some serious snaps for this team. Is it quite in that relevant category I talked about with Williams, Solomon Williams, Isaiah Williams, Terry Bussey, and Tristan Jernigan? I don't know if I'm quite that sold on that yet, but I think that slot receiver is the place that you're going to be able to find a role if you need one, and he's just a really fast player and fast works in college football. So I don't think he's going to have a ton of trouble adapting. So that's the receivers. Then at tight end, you've got Donovan Green as a starter, Garrett Miller, then Trey Watson. Don't disagree with anything there. The 2 transfers behind Donovan Green, I think you're going to see Miller and Watson used in some blocking roles and some pass catching roles. But Donovan Green is going to be the guy, as we've said a ton here on this show. No issue there at all. Left tackle, we've got Trey Zune, left guard, and then with the backup being Ruben Fothry. Left guard, we've got Armaj Reed-Adams, who we talked about a lot yesterday, with Akai Ojimbai as the backup. Then at center, you've got Mark Naboo, which I don't disagree with at all. I think that that's fine. I really like him there. I still think you're going to see Colley find his way into this depth chart. But then at right guard, you've got Cam Dewberry and TJ Shanahan. I like Cam Dewberry. Obviously, we feel good about that. Shanahan, I think, is a really versatile player who can play anywhere on the interior, which is going to be a great thing long-term for this football team. Then at right tackle, Basant, you got Chase Basantis as the starter, Demetrius Crownover, and then Hunter Erb. I think Basantis, that's going to be one of the more interesting topics is, does he stay outside? Does he come back inside? What does he do? I think that he's going to be really good regardless of where you put him. I don't think he's going to have any issue whether you play him at guard or a tackle. I think that he's going to be fine. I still think the best thing to do is develop him a tackle. I mean, it's what he played last year. Let him keep playing tackle. Let him develop there. I know some people want him to come inside, and I'd be fine with that. But I just think at this point, it's like, hey, let him keep playing tackle and see if you can develop him there. Because tackles can move inside. Sometimes it's tough for inside guys to move outside. So that's why I'd leave Chase Basantis out there. But if you're someone who believes he needs to come inside, I'm all in on that as well. Completely understand if that is your take on the matter. So that's the offensive depth chart there from All Aggies. I agree with pretty much all of that, except for really Ruben Owens. I think should be a little bit higher. That's my only argument there. So let me know y'all's thoughts on that depth chart. Anything do you agree with, disagree with? Let me know that in the YouTube comments. I'll be really anxious to hear y'all's thoughts. So the Aggies are set to play Florida in Omaha, a familiar foe. Is this good, bad? What are our opinions here? We're talking about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more. And you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. You know, there's a ton of fun stuff to bet on right now over at FanDuel. As I've continued to talk about, I love the same game parlays for the finals. It's just a ton of fun to break down what's going on in the offseason with NFL, getting ready to bet on that stuff. But yeah, the final same game parlays are a ton of fun. Thoroughly enjoy doing that on a day-to-day basis. It's a lot of fun. You know, can the Mavs come back? If you think so, go bet on them over at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So the Aggies are set to face off with the Florida Gators in Omaha. And, you know, I think that this is a solid matchup, aside from the fact the only thing I don't like here is how hot the Gators have been of late. So, you know, this game's going to be on Saturday evening. I think that's fun, the Saturday night game. If you win, you play the winner of Kentucky and NC State. I just think that, you know, Florida, and this could be the same, you know, Locked On Gators. Brandon Olson can say the same thing I'm saying right now of, you know, hey, we've played Texas A&M. We've seen their pitching. We've seen their hitters. That's going to help us. But it's so it goes both ways. But yes, I think it's true. Having seen pitching, I think helps. I also like, you know, if you're one of those people who believes in mojo or beating a team, I like, now that we're here, I like that Florida won that series. I think it puts a chip on Texas A&M's shoulder and says, we're not going to we let them beat us at their place to start the season. We're not going to let them beat us in Omaha to start the College World Series. And, you know, once again, the key here is continuing to win. It's basically two different regionals. If you go 2-0, if you beat Florida and then you beat the winner of Kentucky and NC State, you're putting yourself in a really good position to win this side and make it to the final of the College World Series. So, you know, that is why I think it makes a ton of sense to, you know, get your good pitchers going early, as we talked about in the regional. It's the same thing now. You're back to a regional. You played in the Super Regional, which is best 3 series. That'll be what it's like in the final of the College World Series. But, you know, I think that this is going to help the Aggies, having played Florida. Just seeing pitching, seeing hitters. You know, I think Texas A&M is a team that does a really good job of game planning, of getting to know pitching, getting to know who they're playing. I think that's a legit, important, you know, detail of baseball. We all know that. I mean, anybody that's played, anybody that's been around it, you know that it's very important to game plan and baseball game plan for pitching. And I think having played this team is going to help. So, but once again, the key, win game 1. If you win game 1 and you win game 2, you're putting yourself in a really good spot to win the regional and win, you know, this half of the College World Series. And it's basically a new regional. So I'm just so excited, ladies and gentlemen. I know y'all are too, but I like this draw. I have a good feeling. I like that. I think, you know, some of the teams I'm scared of, honestly, right now are Kentucky and Florida. I like that they're on your side because it's like, you know, if you get to the final, I think you're probably, I think Texas A&M and Tennessee meet in the final series. And, you know, But the hope is that one of those teams knocks Tennessee off, because Tennessee's the best team on the other side. So your goal is for Florida State, Virginia, or North Carolina to knock off Tennessee, and then you play the winner of that side. That'd be awesome. But this baseball team can win it all, but I know that Montgomery's hurt, and that stinks, and that's concerning. This team is still really good. I love the depth, and we saw it play out with the homer after Montgomery went down, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. So I feel really good about this team. I'm excited. I like that we've played Florida. I like that they won that series now. So there's a lot to be excited about if you are a Texas A&M baseball fan. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank y'all so much for being here every single day. I really, really appreciate it. Hope y'all have an outstanding rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you tomorrow.